Today we live in a world characterized by a wave of globalization. Businesses are getting larger and the world is becoming smaller. Companies are looking for ways to grow and the digital landscape is providing the tools to make it happen, and happen quickly. With this comes a whole new set of challenges. Chief concerns for corporations include management of the talent and resources that go into administering this growth. Legislation around relocation and reducing systems complexity across nations are equally important factors. So how can businesses and individuals ensure they have the systems in place to overcome these challenges? We speak to experts in banking, finance and HR about the evolution of human capital management in an era of global expansion.
The workforce is becoming increasingly mobile and international. People are moving around in their jobs more and more. It's, I think, becoming more rare that people are staying in the same location in the same job for lengthy periods of time. So with that, it also means that you need to support those sort of mobile employees in different ways going forward from an HR perspective. These are typically high talent employees that are being sent on international assignments. So making sure that they have a very consistent, well-supported experience while they're spending time abroad. They have the same sort of support in terms of compensation structures, in terms of performance, management processes, in terms of their learning experience, I think is absolutely critical.
Over the past 7 years, we've seen a significant increase in the number of expats coming into the UK. It's increased from around 7% of the population to 15%. And that's really important to the British economy. It's believed it contributes over 200 billion towards the UK economy. We will continue to see high levels of expats coming into the UK because we're encouraging them to move to the UK to fulfil roles that often aren't available from the local workforce. I think if you go back sort of 10, 15 years ago, there were some very attractive sort of expat packages for people moving overseas, and there's no doubt these have reduced down. I think there's another sort of trend that's emerged where people, or certainly Brits, have moved overseas out of necessity to find employment where they've not been able to get a job in the UK. But when you move overseas, it's really, really important that you plan before you go. You need to make sure you've got all of your affairs in order, your bank accounts. You need to consider what you're going to do with your property, but probably most importantly, you need to go and talk to a tax advisor so you can structure your affairs appropriately.
It is estimated that around 5 million Britons live abroad, with a significant portion of that number having immigrated for employment. David Cavanna, Chief Financial Officer of HSBC, explains the challenges associated with relocation from a personal perspective.
So when I was offered the role of CFO for HSBC China, I leapt to the opportunity of working in an environment which I'd previously enjoyed a great deal. But despite having travelled to China 20 years before, I could not but be amazed and impressed by the degree of change that had happened over that 20-year period. There were, however, a number of challenges, particularly relating to establishing myself within China, building the deep relationships with both expats as well as local people, and forming communities and engagements. I think when you move to another country, I think the first 6 months to a year are incredibly challenging as you create that new personal infrastructure around you. But I think once you've gone past that year, you can then build on that infrastructure and start to enjoy the experience, understand much more about the culture, and also the landscape and the food and some of the broader social events that go on that are not necessarily visible to a casual observer. And it's that sort of more in-depth experience, particularly in the sort of the second, third and fourth year that I was there, that I really enjoyed, because that's where I felt that I started to learn more about China than I had on my previous trip, and certainly in the first year.
So what kind of infrastructure should expats have in place before relocating to ensure their move is as seamless as possible?
Many people who are moving overseas need a multitude of banking facilities. They'll need something in the country that they live in, a local bank account, whether it's in sort of UAE dirhams or Hong Kong dollars, to be able to pay their local bills. You also find that many people want to repatriate their wealth and savings that they earn while they're overseas to a trusted advisor, a name they know in a well-regulated environment, and that's where we can help. I guess the big challenge for someone moving to the UK is they relocate here, but they've got so many things that they need to consider. First of all, they've got to find somewhere for themselves and their family to live. If they've got children, they've got to find a school for them, and then there's the finances. We've tailored our banking facilities to the requirements of someone either living overseas or coming into the UK. So we have a range of different accounts and investment offerings to customers to maximise, I guess, their own finances and the returns that they get. So someone coming into the UK, we effectively have a one-stop shop where we can hold the hand of the person moving to the UK to help them with the opening of bank accounts so they can get their salary paid in, the arrangement of credit cards, which on the face of it sounds very easy, but if you're moving to the UK, you won't have any credit record, so you need some assistance there, because if you go into a normal high street bank, it's likely that they will turn you down. And then also people move overseas in a lot of instances to create wealth, so they need some guidance in terms of how they can manage that wealth.
With expatriation in business becoming increasingly common, finance and HR teams are playing a greater role in offering this guidance and assisting employees in all aspects of their move.
HSBC understood the requirements of the country and the specifics that those requirements had on me. I think having the engagement of your employer and helping you out to find accommodation, to provide you with an indication of where to look for basic necessities, where is the supermarket, where do I go to get a television, what injections do I need if I want to go there. All of those kind of things are very important and make the whole process a lot easier than if you were trying to do that yourself. One example is when you go to China, you need to have a full medical, and that medical report then needs to be submitted to the visa office within a very short time frame, otherwise your visa isn't processed. And for you to personally arrange that in Chinese, when Chinese is not your first language, is incredibly difficult. So I felt that in every aspect of settling into my new life in China, the organisation very much worked with me to overcome those hurdles.
As a business leader, we observe that the situation is changing. I think more and more enterprises are better prepared on all the issues they might face in a multiple country kind of approach. So they are better prepared than before. However, having said this, I think still we see that a lot of elements are still underestimated. So simple things according to us, but complex if you see it in the international environment, simple things as compliances, differences in local legislation is still something which is underestimated. I don't have to refer to fines which are very severe if compliance rules are not applied in the right way. But what about the employees? Employees are only very loyal to a company as long as the paycheck at the end of the month is correct. And if the paycheck at the end of the month is showing other numbers, or loyalty is done. So this is what we still see. So it's still complex, it's still underestimated, and I think that's one of the main reasons why our solutions, Streamline and Global View, are so extremely successful with local knowledge on compliances and legislation, and offering a service level which is multi-country.
In a recent survey that we did at ADP, more than 60% of the respondents mentioned that they are definitely looking at adding more headcount outside of their home country. And in fact, that number's gone up from 50 and 55% in previous years. So if anything, it's an accelerating trend that companies are expanding internationally. Now the reality is when you expand internationally, a lot of times you do that through acquisitions. So what we find is that it does introduce additional complexity in terms of systems and infrastructure. And in fact, in the same survey that we did, we found that large multinational companies actually have more than 35 payroll solutions globally, and more than 30 HR systems that they have in use globally. So huge systems complexity. Now we also know that many of the decision makers are looking to reduce that complexity, and we believe that's really critical for many companies that are operating in this multinational environment, because unless you have a consistent integrated HR system, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to draw any insightful information out of your HR systems. Even simple things like trying to figure out how many employees do we have around the world become very, very complex if you don't have the same sort of consistent data information available within your systems. I think another challenge that most companies are facing once they move and they expand internationally is really managing the change that comes with it. And really, having the processes, the tools in place to support the entire organization. It's not just the product, not just sales, that now start selling in a new location. It's the entire organization that needs to move into this direction. And so HR needs to play a very critical part in that. And it's a huge change management effort that a lot of companies need help to really go through that sort of transformation.
Everyone knows ADP for payroll, but we are also very well established for the HCM solutions. We are providing our HCM solutions for many, many years. We have a broad range of solutions we are able to offer. So also in HCM, we can say we are a leading company. Quite recently, we presented to the market a new solution, and the goal of this IHCM solution is to give an answer on, let's say, the local requirements of HR departments in many countries, as well EMEA, LATAM and APAC. So for the moment we offer this solution we started in the UK, in the Netherlands, in Germany and China, but more countries will follow. And with this solution we really have the answer on HCM questions.
As well as software and solutions, the competitive evolution of the marketplace and the developing role of HR teams also needs to be addressed by businesses. So what is to come and how can we be ready?
The market is more global than ever before. This trend will continue, and also the market for payroll will evolve accordingly. I think even smaller companies become more international. Same will happen in HCM, and I think if you look to the competitive field, I think there will become more international oriented HCM providers rather than local oriented providers. For sure we see the solutions for benefits, the solutions for time also much more in a international perspective than local. The role of big data, and for sure we will accelerate in the cloud environment where the cloud will offer you, I think, all the benefits of let's say from a distance, from a control, from a cost perspective, having the right information in front of you.
For many companies, their employees are by far the largest asset that they have. Intellectual asset, but also in terms of financial balance sheet asset. There's an alignment in terms of the interest that the finance function has and the HR function has. And in many ways, how to manage this asset in an effective manner is really the goal of both the HR department as well as the finance department. So really understanding where do we have our top performers within the organization, how do we promote that talent and get the most value out of that talent, how do we bring in additional talent in the most cost-effective manner for the organization, how do we distribute our current employees across different geographies in ways that, again, we leverage cost benefits while driving results for the company, I think are all kinds of questions that both HR and finance need to work on in collaboration in order to really drive business results for the organization.
Managing the expansion of a business operation is fraught with risk and requires careful planning, strong communication, and solid leadership. As well as the challenge of selling in a new market, there is the added complexity of local legislation, a different culture, and systems development. Global standardized business software will play a vital role in future, addressing these issues and ensuring greater transparency across international locations. The evolving relationship of the HR and finance teams will also be integral to navigating this path smoothly. But equally, the focus needs to be on the individual, as ultimately it is the talent that will drive the organisation forward.